Hello, YouTube. I'm back. It's been a while, I know, but that's what happens when you have to start working again. Ain't life great? Yes, the honeymoon is over, the retired life is over. It's back to 8 hours a day, but at least this will be a better job for me in the end, and I have been able to still get to some of my stuff in the meantime. So obviously not as fast a pace as when I was off for 6 months plus on COVID, um, but we can't live the retired life until we're actually retirement age. So that was just a nice little blip in the radar to recharge the batteries, start a new job, and like I said, in the meantime, still been getting some stuff done. So got 5 things to talk about tonight, and a few books and a couple of games. So the first one up is called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Black Spire. So, extreme close up. So in this book, it follows the events of a certain other Star Wars book. I forget which book it appears in, this story, but a rebel spy named, a resistance spy named Vi Moradi is taken captive aboard a First Order Star Destroyer and interrogated by a red-suited stormtrooper named Cardinal, and she eventually turns him away from the First Order and towards the Resistance, and they escape and stuff. So this book takes place after those events, when Vi's been back with the Resistance and she's recovered a bit, still obviously not mentally, but physically she's recovered, and Leia Organa, the general leading the Resistance, gives her next assignment. And with Cardinal, who we now know his real name is Archex, they are to travel together to a backwater world on the edge of wild space called Batu, I believe is the name. And once on that world, to go to a place called Black Spire, where Vi is going to set up a resistance outpost that can be used to house troops, refuel ships, kind of a waypost that they can use as to hide out and do whatever the resistance needs to do in such a facility. So she and Archex go there with a transport full of supplies. But as they arrive in the atmosphere above this planet, they arrive right in the middle of a dogfight between 2 pirates or something like that, and they get shot down. And when they both come to after the crash, all of their supplies have been stolen, and they're like, what the hell? What a great start to this mission, right? And Archex is in even worse shape than Vi because of the damage Captain Phasma did to him. He has some serious physical damages that kind of limit him and stuff, so the crash was not good for him. And so they kind of start existing in the wild around the site of their crash, and Vi goes into town, into the Black Spire, and with a local woman named Salju, who Vi believes has a good heart, and she kind of helps her get settled into life in Black Spire, how to blend in, not be so obvious as to who she is, and she finds work with a guy named, what was his name? Savvy, who has some sort of a connection to the Force, and is after Force Jedi type artifacts and stuff like that. So she starts working for him and strikes up a friendship with some people that also work for Savvy, and so after a while they settle in, and she starts making money doing this job and starts buying back some of their supplies, and she even starts gaining some new recruits to help flesh out this new facility. A couple of things she's up against, though. The local crime boss named Olga Guerra is the one who basically stole all of her supplies, and she's trying to buy them back from this crime boss. And this boss is only letting Vi kind of subsist in Black Spire so long as she doesn't cause any trouble to Olga. So she's got to tread lightly there. And then soon enough, the First Order comes knocking, and it's what's his name? I forget the name of the officer, but he's there, and it's personal because he's after both Vi and Cardinal. He wants to bring them both in and and have his First Order kind of way with them. So bunch of First Order troops land on Batu and invade Black Spire, and the locals who have been so dismissive of the First Order and their tyranny because they're kind of on the edge of space, and they hear about these stories between the battle between the First Order and the Resistance, but it's so far away that they don't really pay any attention to it. But when it comes onto their doorstep and they see the way the First Order troops treat people, they kind of end up realizing that Vi and the Resistance are kind of the way to go. And so Vi and a bunch of the locals who end up becoming her recruits have to fight off this force that lands on Batu, but do it in a way that will get the First Order to leave the system and not come back, sort of thing, right? So that there was no rebel spy there. The planet is worthless. There's no point in coming back, right? So they have to figure out this way to accomplish that, and not only save themselves, but this whole planet full of locals, right? So really good book, fast-paced, kind of funny in places, intense and action-packed in others, and just a pretty good overall Star Wars kind of story. Next up, the fourth and final book in the Enchanted Emporium series, called The Thief of Mirrors. So in this final story, it starts off, Finley once again is being really stubborn. He hasn't talked to AB in a while, and he's really pissed at his brother Doug because Doug won't give him back the key to the Emporium that Finley had to give him in their last adventure in order to save his life and save the day. And Finley's really mad about this because there's a meeting coming up between all of the families that rule over the Enchanted Emporium and take turns protecting it. And Finley really wants to go to that, and he really wants to be around AB, but Doug's not letting him do that, not giving him the key back, so he's just really pissed. He wants nothing to do with either of them, and he just kind of goes off on his next adventure for Reverend Prospero, his next job that he's supposed to do, which is once again out in the countryside doing something. I forget what he's supposed to do. But that's when kind of opportunity knocks, when he's out doing his job, and the flock of seagulls that washes over the Enchanted Emporium, start bugging Finley and being like, there's something wrong, and he finally figures out that they're trying to tell him something, so then he follows them back. And as he gets back to Applecross and to the Emporium and stuff, he realizes that something's wrong. AB and Doug are both in trouble. So he goes and gets Meb, the other person who's the guardian of the Emporium, and together they figure out that this meeting that's supposed to take place between the families, which Doug and AB and her dad, Loken, have all left for, is kind of ill-fated. And they're all in trouble. So, and of course, the guy who's pulling all the strings behind this scheme is Samuel Askel, who they know is the bad guy and who they've dealt with in past adventures. And once again, Finley is off to confront this guy, and hopefully save his brother and the love of his life. So he ends up taking an adventure on a bus, kind of like a Harry Potter style bus, to a strange place, which actually ends up being his own kind of subconscious. And this is all a trap engineered by Askel, meant to entrap Finley kind of within his own mind and his own dreams and desires and fantasies, and so that Finley will be out of the way and Askel can just get on with his plan. And while Finley's away in this kind of weird land, he makes some weird discoveries about himself and about the nature of this whole magical universe that was thrust upon him when the Lilies came to town, and the Enchanted Emporium along with them. So Samuel Askel thinks he's gotten away with it, but Finley has a lot of pluck behind him and some special powers, and he ends up escaping this imprisonment and heading back to Applecross and putting another really good plan together to free his friends and save the day and finally bring Askel to justice. So and it's a really it's a good conclusion to the series, but it also feels like it's left open, right? Like if I think if the author ever really wants to revisit this series, he probably can. Um, yeah, just a really good series overall. Very, it's for younger readers, obviously, but I like that kind of thing. I like the imagination and the magic and all the unrealities behind it. I find that much more exciting than boring adult stuff. And the books are obviously fairly short and very easy to read through, but it's fun because I love stories that have a good fast pace to them that are easy to read. And this series definitely has that in spades. So, third and last book, Don Cherry's Sports Heroes. So, this book is actually, he goes over visits he's had from certain athletes on a show he used to star on way back in the early 90s called Don Cherry's Grapevine. I remember Grapevine from when I was a kid. I would have been like, in the early 90s, I would have been like, I started high school in like 1990-ish sort of thing. So I would have been, high school age when the Grapevine was in its heyday. And I watched it all the time. I loved it. It was actually filmed at least at the start in Hamilton, where his Grapevine restaurant was, and he would just have mostly hockey players on the show and interview them in only the way that Don Cherry can, but he would have other people on as well, all related to sports in a certain way, but mostly hockey players, but also some other guests. So this book actually just goes through some of his favorite guests and excerpts from some of the interviews, and then his thoughts on that particular athlete and that particular interview, and then also when he thinks about that interview and certain subjects that are brought up, he can go off kind of on a different tangent related to that kind of subject matter and stuff like that, and give his own kind of thoughts and opinions on certain things and stuff. So like I said, most of them are hockey players. There's Gretzky was on there, obviously, Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe, Dougie Gilmore, Bob Probert, Dino Ciccarelli, the Rocket Richard, Gump Worsley, and a few more as well, probably. But then there was some other people and some interesting ones too. There was Don's really into boxing, at least back in the heyday, when he thought it was the best. And Joe Frazier was one of the guests. A Canadian snooker player by the name of Cliff Thorburn or something like that. A former major league umpire that was a real character, and then also his agent he had on there, and then a couple of other ones as well. So really interesting read because Don tells it like it is, which is what I love about him. He's very passionate about how he feels about hockey and what he thinks is right in hockey, and for the most part I agree with him. I love tough hockey, I love fighting, I love hitting, but I also love the fact that people should have honor when they're doing this. And I'm still pissed at Sportsnet for taking him off the air because of the whole "you people" thing, because it was so ridiculous that anybody took offense to that, because everybody knew what he meant. Yeah, it's just Don Cherry is a uniquely Canadian personality that everybody knows, whether you love him or hate him, whether you watch hockey or not. Everybody knows him, a lot of people for years saying he's old, he's irrelevant, but I think that he's not. You know what? Everything he said was always pretty on spot, and it still applied. Just because he says it over and over again doesn't mean it's not true. You hear the same thing over and over again in a lot of different things in life. And it doesn't mean they're not true. Like, how much are you sick of hearing of COVID? Well, it's happening, right? Don Cherry was happening too. Like, it is what it is. But yeah, he's just we're kind of missing out on, he's not going to be around forever. He's obviously up there in age, and the fact that he's not on TV anymore, I think, is a real bad thing. So Hockey Night in Canada is not the same. First they didn't renew the theme song all those years back, and TSN picked it up, and then they get rid of Don Cherry. It's not the same. and the game's not the same either. And I wish they would listen to him more and try and keep the game the way more like it was. But obviously, this modern safe world is going in a different direction. So, but either way, great book. I love the Grapevine show when it was actually on the air. It's cool to go back and listen to and read about some of the stuff, the guests and stuff that were on the show, and all these years later, and it kind of brought back some good memories of that. So, really good book. And the third Don Cherry book I've read in the last about year or so. So, always entertaining. Next up, first game we finished recently, Ben 10 Alien Force for the Nintendo Wii. Like I've said before, I don't watch Ben 10 the show, so I'm not familiar with the whole universe that it takes place in and all the different aspects of it. So in this one, Ben and Gwen, which is his cousin, I believe, who always star in all the games, are out for a drive with a guy named Kevin, who I'm totally unfamiliar with. Looks like a little bit older of a kid than them, and him and Ben have kind of an ongoing kind of rivalry, I guess, but a good rivalry, like. And so they're out up for a drive, and they come across these Forever Night creatures, and kind of follow them and find them digging up some sort of alien artifact. And so they intervene, and in the process run into a plumber named Gorvan, an alien, who claims that he is searching for a bunch of these different types of alien artifacts, and they're all very important to, I don't know, saving something and being good, in being good. So you agree to help him, but then of course over the course of the game, as you retrieve more and more of these artifacts, Gorvan's behavior becomes more and more suspicious, and you realize that you've kind of been tricked into helping this bad guy, fulfill his plans, right? So in the end, you have to kind of save the day from your own kind of doing, sort of thing. So this game was probably somewhere in the middle of the Ben 10 games we've played. I think the first game we played was my favorite. I think it was on the Wii U, and it was one of the Omniverse games. There's two Omniverse games, so I think it was the first one, and that was easily the best one. And then I think one of the ones, it was the one where you're always running and you have to turn and stuff. That one was easily the worst. We played that one, maybe the last one before this one, or no, maybe one more before that. So like the second last game we played before this, and that one was terrible. And then this one's kind of right in the middle with some of the other games. But either way, I like the Ben 10 whole theme of like him having these different alien forms he can use to perform different tasks, because they all have their strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that. I think it's a real cool kind of concept for a show, and of course the games that are based on it. And I do enjoy playing them. I just wish that all of them were of the quality that first Omniverse game was, because it was really good. And then some of them have been not so great. So, but either way, this one was fun. It was an average kind of game, worth the play. Not the best, but also not the worst. So take that for what it is. Last up, Burnout Paradise City Remastered. Or no, not Paradise City, just Burnout Paradise Remastered. So Burnout Paradise was actually a game released a number of years ago on the PS3. And this is actually a redo of it that was just released last year for the PS4, and it's got some added stuff into it, and it's been remastered, of course. So this is Burnout Paradise is the first Burnout game that's been an open world concept, and in it you arrive in Paradise City, and of course Guns N' Roses has the theme song for the game, which is fantastic, and you work your way up in your kind of rep as you complete different types of races and stuff like that, and earn licenses that get higher and higher and more elite, and along the way you can unlock new vehicles that will help you further your aims and stuff like that. So you can just kind of travel around Paradise City and partake in any event that you want, and each time you win an event, it gets you one step closer to completing current license you're working on. And there's a few different types of events. There's just straight out races where you have to race against like half a dozen or more other racers and be the first one to the line. There are road rage events where you have to take down a certain number of other vehicles within a given time frame. There are stunt events where you have to perform a certain amount of tricks like jumps and drifts and spins and that sort of thing, and earn a certain amount of points in a given time frame. And then there are what are they called? You basically have to reach a certain point without getting taken out by these other cars. It's I forget what it's called, but you basically have to survive a race. And then of course there are burning routes, which when you unlock a car, you can then go and complete its burning route event, which is just making it from point A to point B within a certain time frame, and then you will unlock an alternate version of that same vehicle, sort of thing. So those are the different types of events you can compete in, and then each time you reach a license level, all the events open up again, and you can play them again towards your next license. And in the end, you have to basically complete every event in the game to get your final license. We almost did. We got, I think we had to get 120 wins to get our Burnout Elite license or whatever it is, and we got 119. And there's not, like, the last event we should be able to beat just won't show up on the map, so we don't know what to do. So, but we got through the whole game, and it's a lot of fun. It gets a little repetitive after a while because you're just doing the same events over and over again. But it's just such a well-executed racing game and so much fun that, it's not really that big of a deal, right? So, and you have all these bonus cars to shoot for and stuff like that along the way. So it's a ton of fun. It's got great graphics, great gameplay, and the whole, like, some games can be like, the cars seem a bit slow, or the cars seem a bit too fast, or whatever. This one's just perfect. Like, everything about this game works, and it's a ton of fun. So, yeah, and I think now it's really cheap too. So if you've never played this game, now is the time. And Burnout overall as a series is pretty awesome. It started off just all you do is wreck people, right? This one's a little more versatile. It's got different types of events and stuff like that, like I said, but and the whole open world concept is different for the Burnout series, but it works. It's a good game, and I highly recommend. So that is all for now. Sorry if I seem a bit quiet and subdued tonight, but I'm super tired, and I just thought I would get this in before I go to bed tonight, and get it out of the way, because I've had this stuff sitting in my chair for the last few days, and I was starting to forget some of the stories from the book, so I thought I better do it now while I still remember things for the most part. So, but until next time, have a great week.